Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. In this episode, I'm gonna show you how to move from Los Angeles, California to Austin, Texas for free and actually make money. Here's how. So a little over a month ago, me and my girlfriend decided that we were gonna be moving to Austin, Texas. So we started going through the mortgage process and all the other things that go into buying a home. And one thing I was looking up is how much it was gonna cost to move. Now I checked 3 different rental truck companies. I did U-Haul, Penske, and Budget. I went on their websites, I planned my route. I was gonna pick the truck up in Los Angeles, drop it off in Austin, Texas. The cheapest I think was U-Haul, and it was gonna be $5,600, and I don't think that included tax. I'll put a little blurb up right here of what it actually was. And that included a trailer to tow the Datsun. Penske and Budget were even more expensive. So this got me thinking, $6,000, that's a lot of money. I can't just throw $6,000 down the drain, all the expenses that go into buying a home. I don't also want to throw $6,000 into moving. I did some thinking and I came to the resolution that I was going to buy a truck. So I started looking around at used trucks, and that's when I realized how much trucks are worth, like how expensive pickup trucks are. I never realized, a 10-year-old truck, how much it holds its value. So then I started looking at salvage trucks because, I've done the WRX, I've done a crash repair before, and I figured, why wouldn't I do it again? So I picked this 2017 Ram up with under 60,000 miles on it for less than $10,000. These trucks go for over 20K used right now. So I did a little bit of searching and I found that if you go to U-Haul, you can rent their big trailer and they don't charge by the mile, they charge by the day. So if you rent their biggest trailer for 30 bucks a day and you rent it for 6 days, 3 days there, 3 days back, it's only 6 times 30, which would be like 180 bucks. And then I'd also have to buy a trailer and tow the Datsun from Los Angeles to Austin. So I figured if I could get the truck salvaged and I can get the trailer used, then I can actually make money from moving. Because in the end, I don't actually need the truck. I'll probably keep it for a little while, but I'm just gonna sell it. Salvaged cars and trucks normally sell for like 10 to 20% lower than what you'll find as their value on like Kelley Blue Book or those appraisal sites. So if this truck is appraised at 20 to 25,000, and you take off 20%, that's still $15,000. So I essentially have $5,000 after the purchase of this truck because it was $10,000, $5,000 to buy all the parts I need to fix it. And I bought all the parts I need for less than $1,500. There are tons of aftermarket parts companies, and eBay is a great place to find that kind of stuff. You can find parts on there that have reputable reviews, ratings, and work perfectly fine, just as good as OEM. I'm a believer in aftermarket parts. I think buying OEM parts is kind of a scam. For certain things it makes sense, but a lot of stuff, like you don't need an OEM fender. Your fender's gonna fit no matter what, if it's OEM or not. Like, it's not gonna change the car. Especially with something like a salvage title, like it already's been devaluized. How much more can you devaluize it by not putting OEM parts on it? So I'm gonna do a breakdown of OEM prices versus aftermarket prices and just show you guys how they total it out and how much it would cost to get everything from the factory versus getting everything aftermarket or used. So here's the breakdown. You can see aftermarket in the left came to $1,447, and then OEM came to $6,401. So basically I got all the aftermarket and used parts for less than a quarter of the price I would have gotten them for from the dealer. So I'm sorry for that really long intro. There was just so much to go over. So what we're doing in this episode is we're gonna be doing all the front end parts. So not gonna do anything in the interior. We might do the radiator, but we're gonna take the wheel off, show you all the damage. We'll start replacing all the suspension parts in there that are broken, and then we'll get everything rebuilt so that we have a working truck. Just with the car jacked up, this is what we're dealing with. So I've done nothing but take the wheel off. Spindle cracked right here. That's the other piece. It's supposed to look like this. You can see the ball joints are just completely wasted. The bottom ones too. It does look like the upper control arm though is bent, so I'm gonna have to add that to the list of things. Everything else looks fine though. The rotor looks straight when you spin it. It's not like it's wobbly or anything. Caliper looks fine. This tie rod might be busted, but it doesn't seem to wiggle too much. I just wanted to show you how bad this lower ball joint was. So here it is, bending. Yeah, there you go. Now this is what a good ball joint is supposed to feel like. It's supposed to have zero play in it whatsoever. I mean, it's literally holding on the lower control arm, which essentially holds the entire front left wheel on. So there's a lot of weight on this one single part. I mean, I can't move it by hand. You're not supposed to be able to move it by hand. So now that I have everything off and I'm in my garage, I can kind of show you guys how damaged these parts are. So this is the spindle or knuckle. This is the cracked piece. So this is your upper control arm and the spindle's attached to it. So the knuckle's supposed to be like that, and then it's literally broke right in half. I mean, some of this metal is almost an inch thick. It's a serious crack. And we have the split brake line. I had to cut out the sway bar link because it was so bent, it wouldn't go out straight. But this is the sway bar link. That's supposed to be a perfectly straight piece. So actually when taking out the upper control arm, I realized that it's kind of bent. You can kind of see how it comes down a bit and then over. This is the upper ball joint. It's much worse than the lower ball joint. Very wobbly. And now the wheel. So in the front, it looks like there's a little crack here, but it's actually not. This is just a plastic cover. So if we can just pull this off. So you have one big gouge here. You have a couple nicks along the edge. But the real damage is underneath where the rim is completely cracked open. I'm guessing this is what cracked the knuckle. It just, dove right into it. It just hit right there. Just cracked it right open. All right. So once we get the spindle / knuckle all attached, we'll move over the rotor, the brake caliper, and all the other pieces that aren't on that one. All right, I had to come inside because it was getting a little too dark outside to film, but we got the upper control arm installed, the lower ball joint, the sway bar link, and the tie rod. Those are all in, so we're ready for the spindle and the knuckle to go back in. But since it's really dark outside, we're gonna do all the transfer of the parts. We're gonna transfer the rotor, the brake caliper, all that stuff to the new hub. And then tomorrow when it gets light out, we will transfer everything out into the car. I forgot to show you guys these, but when I took the brake pads off, this is what they looked like. Absolutely on their last life. Well, I'm actually gonna wait till tomorrow to put the brakes on, put the brake pads on, because putting the brake pads on right now is just really difficult with the spindle on the ground like this. And I'm gonna get a bunch of lube all over the rotor and then I won't be able to clean it off. So I wanna make sure that this is upright. So we're gonna wait on that for tomorrow. We'll also get the tire done tomorrow and then we'll have the suspension back together. All right, so now we're gonna get the rim and the tire monitor system out to the wheel shop so they can mount it, balance it, and get that done. I think they open in like 25 minutes. So I wanna beat the crowd, get there, get out, get back here and install it. One thing we gotta do before we go is we have to get this old tire monitor system onto the new one. Or actually, I'll just have them install it, but we have to get it off the old rim. So this isn't just where you add air. On the back side, which is kind of hard to see, but there is a monitor system. And that's what sends the light to your dashboard. It says you're low on tire pressure. Those things are like $100. And I know that because I used to work at an auto shop and I broke a few of them because they're really easy to break when you're mounting tires. The way a tire shop mounts tires, there's a piece that comes in here and kind of pushes down when you're taking off the tire. And then you can come around here on accident and you just like break them off really quickly and they're really expensive. I just scratched the rim and I was like, oh no, I scratched it. And I was like, oh no, it doesn't, that doesn't matter. All right, so basically what I just did was at the bottom of these tire pressure monitors, there's a little screw. I just undid the screw and then I popped the bottom off. The bottom actually dropped into the tire, which is why I cut a hole and got the pressure monitor out of there. And then I just used a pair of pliers to pull this all the way through. And now I'm gonna put it back together, I'll screw it on, and then I'll bring all of this to the tire shop. Now, next time you guys see these wheels, it will be one wheel and connected. Now it's all mounted, pressure, balanced. I'm glad I balanced it because you can tell that it's really out of balance by how many weights they added to it. So that's a bit out of balance, but the tire is also refurbished and the rim's refurbished. So that has to play into the fact of it being super out of balance. Definitely worth the $16 balance. All right, now let's get the spindle in and then we'll start putting in the brakes and everything. All right, now we're gonna get that tire monitor spliced back together. So we have a bunch of heat shrink, lighter, torch. So first we're gonna cut two pieces of heat shrink, one small, one big, and we're gonna slide it onto the wire. Then we're gonna use electrical tape, we'll splice both wires back together, and then we're gonna move the heat shrink on top of the spliced area, melt it, and we'll put the bigger piece of heat shrink on top of that, melt it, and that's it. So we do the double heat shrink because that area in the wheel well gets so much water. We wanna make sure it's super airtight and that, you know, no water is gonna get in there at some point. All right, now everything in here is hooked up. Tie rod, sway bar link, upper control arm, lower ball joint, ABS sensor, brake line, brakes, brake pads. So everything is set up. I think it's time to put the wheel on. I actually just forgot that I need to bleed the brakes before we put the wheel on. I'm not gonna show you guys the process, but I have this like one-man brake bleeder kit, which is really cool. You just attach it like magnets onto the frame or any metal down there. And then you attach this tubing from this to the nipple on the caliper. And you just loosen the nipple, go in the car, pump the brakes, and you do it a couple times. You like fill up the bottle 1 or 2 times, and then it just bleeds out all the air in your system. Really easy, recommend it to anybody who doesn't have one of these. Right now the wheel is in and the truck is looking pretty good. We're gonna install a new radiator now. We're just gonna take the old one out, put the new one in. I think I already showed you guys all the cracks and everything in the old one. So this should just be kind of like a plug and play. All right, so we got the old radiator off. We had to end up taking off the fan, and that gave me enough space to kind of like twist it out. New and old radiator match up pretty perfectly. I don't see anything that should be an issue. All the same tabs, all the same holes, all the same nuts. 2 nuts, 2 nuts. So, looks like it should go in pretty easily. Right now we got the radiator installed. We're gonna fill it up with some coolant, throw a battery in, start the car, and get the coolant cycling through the engine. All right, now we're gonna get the new battery installed. It is a brand new battery, and oh gosh, it's heavy. So the reason I didn't include this in the price breakdown is because, so when I got the car, the battery is dead. Usually when you get these cars from auction, the batteries are almost always dead because after the collision, you know, they leave the car on, or it just sits in a lot for, 5 months. So the batteries are almost always dead. The sticker on the battery that was in that truck said 0920. So it was just replaced in September, and this is March right now. Right now, as we're filming, it's March 22nd. So it was only like, 6-7 months ago that the battery was brand new. So I took it to the place where it was bought from, which was, Superstar is O'Reilly's, and I got a warranty exchange on it, even though I wasn't linked to the battery, just because it was such a short period of time. So I did get a battery for free, which is awesome because these are about 200 bucks. All right, well, this is the moment of truth, whether it's gonna overheat or not, because we just got to the middle. And usually that's where the thermostat idles, is, in the middle of the cold and the hot. So the reason why I'm thinking it might overheat is because the radiator is just like totally cracked, And in an accident, most people aren't thinking to turn their engine off. They're thinking about calling the cops, getting pictures for insurance, all that stuff. So if all the coolant leaves your engine and then it runs for 5 minutes without coolant in it, then, the engine's gonna overheat, the cylinder heads are gonna warp because they're most likely aluminum, and then your head gaskets are gonna blow. And then with your head gaskets blowing, your car's gonna overheat, and that's what I'm waiting for right now. I'm waiting for that temperature gauge to overheat and tell me that the head gaskets are blown. But it's not turning, so I think they might be okay. So I ended up taking this around the block, flooring it, hitting the gas really hard, and it never overheated. The temperature gauge never went above halfway, so I don't think I have a blown head gasket. I think everything's fine. I think I didn't get a lemon, which is great. Other than that, I'm liking this truck. It drives really nice. It does not drive like it was just in an accident. The deployed airbags are a nice touch, you know, especially right here on my side. It's also really dirty in here, but it was like a worker truck, so there's just grime and dirt everywhere. Well, the truck is all back together, or at least mechanically the truck is back together, and it's running great. The suspension feels great, it drives great, so I'm really happy with where we are right now. This is gonna be it for this episode. This episode was just gonna be the mechanical things, the suspension, the engine stuff, and making sure it's gonna turn on, it's gonna drive down the street. In the next episode, we're gonna be doing body panels, all the exterior stuff, paint, the fender, the door, putting the logos onto the door again, all that stuff, realigning the hood, making sure everything shuts nicely, and then the interior will hopefully come after that. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I will catch you on the next one, which will be very soon, so keep an eye out.